So today I wanted to talk about some aircraft that we might see before the 5th generation jet. So basically what is left to be added for new vehicles for the 4.5 generation, right? So let's get to it. I don't want the video to be too long. We start off with the Super Hornet. Of course, it was already leaked. We already know it's coming. It's gonna come very, very soon, probably. I mean, I would imagine that in the next 1 to 3 patches, we will see the Super Hornet being added. If you don't know, of course, I mean, I don't even need to explain, but the Super Hornet is a major redesign of the Hornet that we have in the game. More focused on stealth. Later, you got an AESA radar, way better ECM, way better cockpit, way better weapons overall. The performance is more or less the same, but it is better. Okay, it is better. It has a way better engine, which is the 414. And overall, it will be a 4.5 that I think everybody will kind of like to have, right? So yeah, the Super Hornet will definitely be one. For the Russians, of course, we have 2 vehicles. The Su-35, which will be basically the last flanker. It would basically fix all the problems that the flanker had before, right? And be basically better than the Su-30SM and better than the Su-27SM, right? So it would have better engines. It would have the thrust vectoring, so it would be as maneuverable as the Su-30, being lighter, so probably even more, or around the same because it doesn't have the canards, but more or less with more power, so it would be more usable on that manner. It has more power, more thrust than the Su-30SM as well, so again, lighter as well. It has one of the most advanced radars the Russians have, PESA, of course. You would have the most amount of missiles. Of course, modernized missiles like the R-77-1. And of course, all of these vehicles can receive better versions of IR missiles when they got added. So, for example, the Super Hornet can have the 9X. This one can have the R-74, etc., etc., right? So, it would be the ultimate flanker. We will probably see it before the 5th generations, or together maybe, or something like that. Another one for the Russians would be the MiG-35 as well. The last version of the MiG-29, basically, right? The same kind of idea here. Better engines, better radar, better everything. More missiles, 8 pylons, better performance, better fuel, so it takes more fuel and it doesn't need the SMT kind of bulge there. The radar, more or less, would be the same as the SMT, okay? But there are options to use a full PESA or as a radar on there as well, which would help a lot this vehicle. It depends on option, depends on client, basically. These vehicles were not built in large numbers, so it depends on the client buying the aircraft, okay? But overall, of course, R-77-1 is the most modern air-to-ground capability, etc., etc., right? For the Swedish, of course, we can have the Gripen E, the same kind of line of thinking. Basically, a 4.5 generation of the Gripen C, right? So, major overhaul, new engine, the same as the Super Hornet one, AESA radar, completely redesigned at cockpit, new weapons and more of them, so we can carry more missiles, more pylons and stuff, but also better ones, so we can carry the IRST, for example, the Meteor missile, etc., etc., right? Of course, if it's added like tomorrow, of course, it would have normal AIM-120C5s and AIM-9Ms, right? But in the future, when they start to add these missiles, we will probably see them as well. Overall, not much to talk about here, but the aircraft fixes the main problems of the original Gripens, especially the thrust to weight and the amount of power that he has, the radar, everything. Like a major problem, but it fixes those little problems to really become a 4.5 generation, okay? Of course, the Chinese have new vehicles as well, with the J16, for example, being their own version of an Su-30SM, if you will. It doesn't have thrust vectoring, apparently, but it would have more thrust. It would have their own radar, which is an AESA. It's one of the most modern flankers they have, if not the most modern. It would basically be a very, very modern vehicle that would have all the new missiles, the PL-10s and PL-15s, like I said, AESA. Even there is a version that it's electronic warfare, which is the D model, similar to the Growler or something like that, right? So it's a very cool aircraft that we might see in the future. I don't know if it before the 5th generations or together or something, just because the missiles that it can take are, going along with 5th generation jet missiles, okay? So it's a step up from what we have. The J-15 is another one, which is basically a modernized Su-33. It is in between. It's a little bit less modern than the J-16, but it would still carry a PESA radar It would still have modern missiles, but it can take the PL-8s, the PL-12, so it's more likely that it will be added first. There is a B model that take an ESA radar. It can take the PL-15s and a better MOS and everything, but in a general sense, we'll probably see the first one. So it is a very interesting aircraft, 4.5 generation Su-33 basically, right? So very cool Chinese vehicle as well. And then guys, I will have some honorable mentions over here to wrap up the videos, because these 6 that I talked about are more like a very new aircraft that take, of course, the original designs and really improve them. But we will have a lot of vehicles that will have very similar capacities to those that I talked about, or to those that are already in the game, but are less likely, in my opinion, to be added. For example, F-15C with an ESA radar, it can be added. Less likely, it's more likely that a 15C MSIP2 just receives the AIM-120C5 and be done with it, you know, but it is possible. An F-15E upgraded with ESA, maybe even the EX or something, but I honestly think that it will take a little bit more time for them to add something like that. It's not really production for now, it's getting to production, I think, or something like that. But the idea here is that I think they're gonna rush towards the 5th generations first, so we might see it, but maybe it will take more time. An F-15C with more upgrades as well, or overall F-16s with maybe the Block 70 or something like that can be added for the US or other nations, right? But I honestly believe it will take a little bit more of a step up compared to the ones that we talked about. The same goes for the MiG-29M and K, although yes, I would love to see these versions of the MiG-29, but honestly, I think it will take a little bit more time for them to be added, and probably the MiG-35 will be added first. Remember, these are the modernized versions that eventually became the 35, right? They had a prototype in the late 80s, right? But they became something else later. The K is the one that I think it's more likely because it's a navalized version of the MiG-29. We might see it under the Yak-141. Many nations used, even if I'm not mistaken, the British can have one with the Indian Air Force. We can have also maybe a new version of the Su-27 SM-3. More likely than not is just to add the R-77-1 there. SM-3 would just have basically a better radar compared to the SM that we have, so why not just add the missile and not have the full grind of a new aircraft just because of a new radar? Or an upgrade on the modifications tab, that would be great, right? Su-30 SM-2, this is a little bit more likely, but again, I mean, the major difference here is a radar and an engine. The aircraft itself is almost the same. It would probably be even the same BR with the level of compression of BRs that we have in the game. So yeah, Su-34M would have a higher BR. It would be a modernized version, better radar, better weapons. This is one that I see it coming, but I still believe that it will take a little bit more time. Might be completely wrong, but still. Another honorable mention is more modernized versions of the Eurofighter. Of course, we might see it even with an ESA radar. I think they're planning to add, right? So yeah, in the future, probably we'll see more versions, better missiles being used, stuff like that, depending on what is added to the game. Even with the Rafale as well, with the Mika extended range, right, and stuff like that. I think one version that we might see very soon is the navalized version of the Rafale, very similar to the one that we have in the game, but naval, that would be cool. It is one of the best they have, so yeah, we can have a modernized version of the F-15J with the JSI. Again, I don't see it coming right now, but in the future, maybe, just like the F-15C with the NASA, it would be kind of like that, so why not just add the better missiles to that and save the grind. J-10s, Bs or Cs, right? This is one that I think will come very, very soon. But again, it's just a slight modification to the version that we have in the game. It's barely even a 4.5. I think the C is properly a 4.5, but still. So basically, this is it, right, guys? Vehicles that are more likely than not. So these are the honorable mentions. You know, there are plenty of other aircraft here, but these are the ones that I think are most likely ones, okay? If I missed any of these aircraft that I think you think that might come before the 5th generations, make sure to leave it in the comments. I see you guys in the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. And yeah, thank you all the members and patrons, and bye. See ya.